You probably have a frozen pizza sitting in your freezer right now, and you probably grabbed it without reading past the front of the box. I checked 6 New Zealand supermarket chains, Woolworths, Foursquare, New World, PAK'nSAVE, SuperValue, and FreshChoice, and turned every single pizza package around. Only 2 passed. The rest were selling you something the front label never quite admits. The most expensive one is not the safest one. The word Italian does not mean what you think it means, and the smallest store in town might be charging the biggest premium for the exact same pizza. Here is the standard I judged every single one against. Does the front of the box match what is actually inside it? Does the price per 100 grams match the tier the branding is trying to sell you? And is the recipe leaning on starches, gums, and cheap oils to pad out a pack that is priced like it deserves better? Simple test. Most of these boxes failed it before I even got to the ingredient list, and a couple of them failed it before I even opened the freezer door. Number 1. Woolworths Dr. Oetker Ristorante Pizza. This is the one shoppers grab when they want to feel like they are buying quality instead of settling for a bargain bin box. Made in Italy, stamped right on the front, sitting at the top of the price ladder in that freezer aisle. You reach for it because it feels like the grown-up choice next to the home brand tubs stacked underneath it. The box looks the part. Thin crust, real-looking char marks printed across the packaging, a price tag that quietly tells you this one is supposed to be better than everything around it. But trade reporting on the New Zealand frozen pizza market has flagged this exact pizza for price increases that outpace the rest of the category, with import costs doing a lot of the talking behind the scenes. That is not a scandal. Nobody broke a rule. It is just a price built on a flight across the world, not necessarily on better cheese underneath the tomato. You assume paying more here buys you something cleaner. Mostly it buys you distance traveled. You are not just paying for pizza, you are paying for the stamp on the box and the story that comes with it. That is not authenticity. That is a premium sticker sitting on top of a supply chain, and you are the one covering the shipping every time you put it in your basket. Look at the box next to it on the same shelf, the home brand version half the price, and ask yourself honestly whether the cheese underneath is really doing anything the cheaper one is not. Most of the time it is the crust and the marketing doing the heavy lifting, not a dramatically different block of mozzarella. And here is the part that stings a little. The next entry does not even bother crossing an ocean to borrow its credibility. Number 2. New World's Chicago Gourmet Barbecue Chicken and Bacon Pizza. Chicago. Gourmet. 2 words doing an enormous amount of heavy lifting on one box, priced close to the imported pizza you just heard about. It feels like a premium local specialty, the kind of pizza a real pizzeria in a real American city would make, dropped straight into your local freezer aisle with a smoky barbecue swirl printed across the lid. The name alone does most of the selling before you even flip it over to check anything. Here is the problem. Industry reporting on the New Zealand pizza supply chain has linked pizzas sold under this label to a South Island manufacturer, not to anything resembling the American city printed across the front of the box. You are paying near import pricing for a name borrowed from a place this pizza has never come within 10,000 kilometers of. Gourmet here is a price tier. It is not a promise about where anything actually came from, who made it, or what city inspired the recipe sitting in your cart. Check the shelf price against the size of the box next to the imported one, and the gap is smaller than it should be for a pizza that never left the country. That one at least borrowed a reputation and ran with it. The next one borrows a whole country's name and puts it right there on the front of a home brand box, sitting 2 shelves down at the smallest supermarket on this list. Number 3. Foursquare's Pams 4-cheese pizza. This one looks like the honest budget pick. Familiar home brand name, authentic Italian pizza printed right across the front in confident lettering. The kind of box you grab without a second thought because it is cheap and it tells you exactly what it is. Except turn it around, the way the brand hopes you never do. The cheese blend behind that authentic Italian claim is built on mozzarella first, then Edam, then provolone, then a hard cheese filling out the rest of the label. Edam is a Dutch cheese. It is sitting there as the second biggest cheese by weight in a pizza that is telling you, in bold letters, that it is Italian. That word does nothing legally. It just does a lot of work emotionally, right before you toss the box in your trolley without comparing it to anything else. That is not a lie anyone can drag into court. It is a label doing more flattering than the ingredient list can actually back up. And because you are buying it at a small format convenience store instead of a full-size supermarket, you are very likely paying more per 100 grams for that exact same box than a shopper grabbing it off a bigger shelf across town. Same recipe, smaller store, Bigger markup, quietly built into the price tag instead of the pizza itself. Nobody at head office is lying to you on paper. The percentages are all sitting right there in brackets next to each cheese if you actually stop and read them, printed small enough that most shoppers never bother. That one still tastes like pizza at least. The next one is where the family size promise on the box actually starts to shrink on you. Number 4, SuperValue's McCain Margherita Classic Crust Pizza. This is the brand everyone already trusts before they even look at the price. McCain has been sitting in New Zealand freezers for years. Classic Crust sounds like a safe, boring, reliable choice. And reliable is exactly what you want on a night when you are tired and just need dinner sorted without thinking about it. Reliable does not mean the numbers printed on the side of the box hold up the way you assume they do. Like most pizzas in this tier, the nutrition panel is calculated per a slice-sized serving that has almost nothing to do with the half a pizza you are actually going to eat standing at the kitchen counter at 9 at night, straight off the tray. Whatever is printed as one serving is not what lands on your plate, and it was never really designed to be. Buying it at a smaller format store like this one again means less shelf competition keeping that price honest. The same structural trick from the last entry showing up again in a different costume. The base itself bakes up thinner and doughier than the box photo suggests, which is its own small disappointment. But the real issue is the math on the side of the pack. The numbers on the box are technically true. They are just not talking about how you are actually going to eat the thing. Stack the price tag against a full-size supermarket carrying the exact same box, and the gap usually is not covering better ingredients. It is covering the cost of running a smaller store with less foot traffic and less pressure to compete on price. 4 stores down, and not one of them broke a rule. They just let the label do the persuading instead of the pizza. Here is where that finally stops. Number 5, PAK'nSAVE's Pams Mozzarella and Basil Pizza. This one passes. No frills discount store, bare packaging, the lowest shelf price of anything on this entire list. The kind of pizza you grab expecting nothing much, just hoping it is edible after 12 minutes in the oven. Here is the twist nobody expects walking in. This is the one where cheap actually means cheap, instead of cheap dressed up as something premium it never was. The box says real mozzarella cheese and basil pesto topping. That is it. No authentic, no gourmet, no imported stamp trying to justify a price jump that never actually shows up on the shelf tag. The ingredient list does not need a long chain of thickeners and stabilizers to explain itself, because the price was never trying to punch above what the recipe delivers in the first place. You know exactly what tier you are buying into before you even reach the checkout. Nobody printing this box is trying to convince you it is something it is not, and there is something almost refreshing about that after 4 entries of borrowed names and quiet markups. This is not the best tasting pizza on this whole list, and I am not going to pretend it is. It is the most honest one here. And that honesty, on its own, is exactly why it earns its place in the safe column instead of a warning. Number 6, FreshChoice's frozen pizza range. This one passes too. FreshChoice built its whole reputation on being the bigger, better stocked supermarket sitting inside a family of stores that also includes plenty of small format options like the ones you just heard about. And that range is exactly what earns it a pass here, more than any single box sitting on the shelf. Standing in front of a wider freezer section means you are not stuck picking whatever the smaller store down the road happened to stock that week. You can actually stand there with the door open, cold air on your hands, and compare the home brand box against the mid-tier box against the imported one, using every single trick you just heard about in this video before you commit to anything. The win here is not one flawless pizza sitting on a shelf waiting to be discovered. It is that you are not cornered into one option and one marketing claim you have no way of checking against anything else in the store. That is what actually earns a pass in this aisle, not perfection. An honest shot at comparing before you hand over your money at the till. 6 stores, 1 freezer aisle, and only 2 of them walked away clean. Notice what the 2 that passed actually had in common, because it is not fancier pizza. Neither one tried to convince you it was something bigger than it actually was. No borrowed country sitting on the front of the box. No inflated gourmet language dressed up in a Chicago name. No hiding behind a smaller store just to sneak the price up a little at a time while nobody is comparing shelves. The other 4 were not doing anything illegal. Nobody broke a law standing in that aisle. They just built a box that flatters harder than the ingredients or the price tag can actually back up, and most shoppers are moving too fast past that freezer door to ever notice it, tossing the box in the trolley and moving on to the next thing on the list. Once you catch a trick like a borrowed country name or a serving size quietly shrinking under a family-sized promise, you start noticing the same pattern everywhere else in the store. The garlic bread sitting right next to the pizza, the ice cream 2 aisles over with the same imported stamp doing the same job, the family-sized bag of nuggets at the bottom of the freezer, calculated per 3 nuggets a serving like anyone actually eats that way. The front of the box is always selling you a feeling. The back of the box is the only part actually telling you the truth. Check it before it goes in your cart, not after it is already in the oven, because the next aisle is playing exactly the same game, and I'm going to turn those boxes around next.